So Stephen A. Smith, it's no surprise on this channel when I'm making videos about some of his takes. I'm not the biggest fan of this guy, but he has made one of his more dumb takes recently. And it is that Kawhi Leonard is the worst superstar in the history of the NBA. Before you know, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We're trying to hit 5,000 subscribers as soon as possible. But anyway, now let's get on to the video. So Stephen A. Smith has come out on First Take, this is 2 days ago this stage, and talked about how Kawhi is the worst superstar in the NBA. Do you want to know what the reason for it is? That Kawhi is never really able to play too many games. He doesn't have an issue with Joel Embiid, by the way. He doesn't have an issue with Joel Embiid. It's just Kawhi. It's just Kawhi's inability to play games that's an issue. The worst superstar in the NBA? I'm pretty sure there are a lot of much worse things that superstars and big players in the NBA can do. I wouldn't consider him a superstar, but someone who was on their way to being a star in Miles Bridges did something a lot worse than what Kawhi's done. And there are others. There are others. How many superstars in the past? Heck, Jason Kidd, when he was in the NBA. What are we doing? What's the problem with Kawhi Leonard? Is that he's injured all the time. Yeah, he actually has something wrong with his knees. And that was diagnosed years ago. They're oh, when it's time for a new contract, he can play. And it's oh, he was injured in the 2021 playoffs when I'm pretty sure he re-signed a contract while injured with the ACL injury. He is picking up legitimate injuries because I think he's got something wrong with his knees. He's the worst superstar. Why? Because he won a finals MVP at 23 years old. Did as good a job on LeBron James for that Spurs team as anyone possibly could have. And then went and won a ring for Canada. Be surprised if he'd won that. Say instead of Toronto, they had to trade him to the LA Lakers where people thought they were going to do it. Let's just say the Spurs, because he was going to go to LA, said, you know what, screw it. Let's just trade him to the Lakers. We don't really care. Let's go and trade him to the Lakers, have him win with LeBron. And if Kawhi in that 2019 season was finals MVP, oh man, you better believe Stephen A. Smith wouldn't be saying that stuff about Kawhi right now. But it just doesn't make sense, because when we talk about load management, I get it. Kawhi Leonard is the face of that. But he's legitimately injured. And I hate to say it, but he is. The Spurs very clearly just misdiagnosed something. And teams have misdiagnosed plenty of things. Heck, the Celtics misdiagnosed Isaiah Thomas. They told him he'd be fine to play and it ruined his career. Teams do misdiagnose things. And whether or not they did it with Kawhi, it sure looks like they might have. But of all the NBA players to go after as the worst superstar, why Kawhi? Also, another reason he's oh, Kawhi doesn't do any of the other stuff in the media. He doesn't do X, Y, and Z. And it's well, that's not what he's being paid for. That's not exactly what he's being paid for. I'm just putting it out there. No NBA players have the obligation to do that. To do any extra stuff in the media. By that logic, why aren't you killing Nikola Jokic? Why aren't you killing... I'm trying to think of other superstars off the top of my head that have never done this. Why aren't you killing Joel Embiid? Why aren't you going at Klay Thompson's with Anta? They do a bunch of stuff in Asia. But why aren't you killing all these guys? Why is it just Kawhi? Why is it just Kawhi? And why is there a expectation for these basketball players to do stuff outside of basketball? If they are doing it, great. And that's a big reason why WNBA is succeeding. If they're able to do it, great. If you are able to do all the other stuff outside of basketball, then great. But Kawhi clearly doesn't want to. Not only that, he just wants the ball. He just wants to go out there and play basketball. And at the end of the day, we can't knock someone for that. Just because you want to see them show more personality, I'm sorry, Kawhi doesn't have much. And I know people talk about how funny Kawhi Leonard is. That's not Kawhi Leonard trying to be funny. It's Kawhi when he laughs and he's a robot. Man, look, I wish the Spurs didn't misdiagnose injury, because he could have just done that. He would have been unbelievable in San Antonio. Heck, I can guarantee you San Antonio would have won another ring with him. Just the way that franchise is. He would have been perfect there. But obviously, there are reasons he got out. But also, why is he not talking about Tim Duncan? Why was he not talking about Tim Duncan back in the day? Tim Duncan won 5 rings, 3 finals MVPs, but why was he not talking about Tim Duncan? Why is it now that it's such a huge issue for some of the best players in the league to not do commercials and not do a bunch of and worry about the stuff outside the sport of basketball, especially when to be able to play the sport of basketball, Kawhi's obviously got to do a ton of like rehab work, a ton of like work with his knees to make sure that he can play. And the worst part is he's been injured for the last couple of playoffs. And you might be saying, oh yeah, but what about the injuries? What about them? It's like when Tracy McGrady started getting injured. Like his body was breaking down. Kawhi Leonard's body is breaking down. Just because Kawhi Leonard can still perform at a superstar rate when he plays doesn't mean that his body's not breaking down and that it's a ticking time bomb for when he's going to get hurt year on year. And that's just the truth of it all. Is he the worst superstar ever in the NBA? Of course he's not. The worst superstars in the NBA are ones that have done things off the floor that will really, really jeopardize like how people think about them. The worst superstars in the NBA are the ones that can never get it done. Heck, if you want to compare a superstar injury-wise to Kawhi Leonard, go and compare him to Tracy McGrady. Except the difference is that Kawhi won twice. He was Finals MVP twice and won in Canada. He won in Canada. The Spurs shipped him out of the country and he won. Let's not forget about how good Kawhi's been in his career. 2 Defensive Player of the Years. Like, he's one of the 50 greatest players to ever play the sport of basketball. And if you take into account just playoffs and ability to play in big games, he's probably one of the 30 greatest players to ever play the game of basketball. Just because he's injured, because his body's breaking down, and because you don't like the fact that he's not all in your face, he's not this big personality, he just wants to ball, he's an all-around, probably quite boring person. Just because you don't like that does not mean you have the right to call him the worst superstar we have ever seen. Like, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely, absolutely ridiculous. And just another ridiculously dumb take coming out of the mouth of Stephen A. Smith. Like, every day he says something dumb. Like, sure, just 2 weeks ago, he was saying, basically, because of the freaking playoff success, I'd say, that Luka Doncic should not have been on the All-NBA first team, even though he put him on the damn first team. And you're going to be hearing him at some stage talk about how Luka probably deserved NBA MVP soon, because he literally just goes back in everything. He will say whatever the hell will get the most clicks on ESPN, and that's basically it. Like, he'll do whatever the hell he can to get as much clicks on to watch him on ESPN, even if it is incredibly dumb. And this is one of the dumbest things that he said. Because I get it if you're frustrated that Kawhi's not able to play all the time. But at the end of the day, he's not just resting to rest. He's resting because his body can't take 82 games in a season. Like, his body's not right. His knees aren't right. He's not made to play 82 games in a season. And because of the whole All-NBA situation, he probably played 15 more games than he should have in the regular season, and that wrecked him for the playoffs. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have him playing every regular season game. And, like, I understand in a lot of situations you want to play as much as possible. But for some players, their bodies are not built to play 82 games, especially when they have issues with their, like, long-term issues with their knees. And you got to sometimes say, you know what? Yeah, they're going to play 65 games. They're going to be screwed in the playoffs. Or they can rest and maybe be better for the playoffs. But obviously, he needs to play those games for the Clippers because they're not a playoff team without him. Anyway, that's the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.